Okay, today I'm here to tell you how to possibly fix the most annoying thing in fly fishing. And it came to me, I was reading the latest issue of Trout Magazine, and in the back there's a small article about Dave Whitlock and how he basically fixed this problem 30 years ago, and I don't know, I'd never heard about it. And as soon as I read it, it was like, duh. So typically, well, here's the biggest problem in fly fishing. You've caught a fish, you've brought in your line. I catch a lot of like bluegills and bass and stuff, and then you go to send your line out, and it gets stuck, and it's like stuck in that knot, or you can't get your line out because you got all this like weird stuff going on, and you have to shake it, and it's my zen gets completely blown when that happens, okay? So what Dave said, and it makes perfect sense, and I'm going to do this to all my lines in a few minutes here, is instead of a nail knot here and maybe a loop to loop or whatever you have, or even just the nail knot onto your leader, is we put the butt of the leader inside of the fly line, glue it with like super glue and stuff, and you'll see that the inside is kind of braided, and then keep about 2 or 3 feet of your leader, and then put your loop to loop here. Because most of the time, that part's not, that just doesn't go in. And you'll eliminate like so many of these issues with the loop to loop and the nail knot getting stuck up in here. So let's see if we can do it. I've kind of tried a couple different ways, and it kind of works. It kind of doesn't work. I watched one online, and it made me crazy. So basically, what you do, and I'm going to bring this up as close as I can get, is you have your line, at the end of your line, and you basically pull off the plastic from it. Now I've tried a couple different ways. I used a wire stripper. If you don't have one of those, ask one of your neighbors who's handy. I'm sure they have a wire snipper. And sometimes it'll slide off. Mine sometimes would just cut the line. It may be because this is old line here. But basically what you end up with is, and I wish this thing would get in closer, but basically what you end up with is the floating part of the line, and then one of those braided things, that look like the old Chinese finger torture things. So then you take your leader, and here's a new leader. It doesn't have a loop on the end. I just cut it off. And you take this leader. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to open that up. Okay, and this is where you take off your regular readers and you put on your 3.5x super readers, and you get a pin, any kind of pen. This is my wife's sewing something. I don't even know what it does. I think it's a seam stripper or something, but it had a nice tip on it and a handle. And you go in there and you kind of open up that little Chinese finger torture thing, okay? And I say that with the most reverence for Chinese. That's the only way I can describe it. It's one of those things you used to get as a kid, and you'd put your fingers in it, and they'd get stuck, and you'd laugh and think it was the smartest thing in the world. Anyway, so I've done that. I probably should have gone a little farther on this as far as stripping off the plastic, but you get the idea of what's going on here. So I've got that in there, and then very quickly I'm going to kind of pull that off, kind of keeping it spread open, and then coming back here with my fly line, and I should be there. It's in there now. And you slide your fly line in, and then very carefully kind of pull that stuff over it. And I read somewhere that somebody said to rough up your fly line too. Didn't think to do that right now. Or rough up your leader before you do this. So you stick it in there. I think I'd be comfortable sticking it in about maybe an inch or two instead of just this little bit that I have here. And then at that point, you just take your crazy glue, which just, all right, is not working for me here today. Well, you take your crazy glue. Okay, of course, my crazy glue is not opening up properly for me today. There it is. And take your crazy glue, just give it just a little bit of crazy glue on there. You very carefully blow on it. That's an important component. And in a few seconds, actually humidity does, and then look at that. I can't pull that apart, just that little bit. So now what I'll do is I'll do my leader to about maybe 2-3 feet. I typically put on, I usually use a leader and then I go back and forth with, this is a 3X leader, so I'll put 4X on the end of this and then maybe even 5X. But usually I go between 4 and 5X, and when I'm doing bigger streamers, maybe 3X. So what I'll do is I'll actually leave this probably pretty long and then do loop-to-loops after that, or even just surgeon's knots. But look at that, I've solved that most annoying problem that you have when you're fly fishing. And this is what I'm doing this afternoon. I'm spending the rest of the day and I'm gonna just do this to all of this. It does make a little bit of a soft edge there, but I don't think that's gonna make much difference. And I think if I were to peel this back a little bit farther and send that in a little bit longer, I mean, there's always gonna be a hinge there, but man, I am so happy with that. I can't even imagine it. So there you go. That is the coolest tip. And it was because I'm a TU member and I get Trout Magazine. And back here, they don't tell you how to do it back here. You have to go online to figure it out. But there's just a wonderful article that Dave Whitlock, who knows more about fishing than probably anybody, great article. And he goes through all the different methods he used to tie the leader to the line. In fact, using a granny knot, but it's called knotless. So go ahead and it's changed my life. All right, see you on the river.